your business can grow its market share 4 times faster. Be heard by over 43,000 island adults over 13 weeks. Call us on 682 600. Manx Radio is proud to support Manx businesses and communities.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Faster by, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Open line through till 1. So the floor is yours. Text 166 177. Email studio@manxradio.com. WhatsApp 166 177. But you'll need to put us in your contacts. Call 66 13 68. So any thoughts on what Dave Quirk had to say yesterday? He seemed very upbeat about our future regarding wind turbines on the Isle of Man. I just wonder what your thoughts are from what you heard yesterday, if you've had time to have a think about what it was. Mark dropped a note in to say the interconnector that will be built will be providing most of our power long into the future. It's a lie, Mark's word, to complain that self-sustained green energy will be possible by 2030. Battery storage is hugely expensive and we don't have enough wind power to power the Isle of Man. What about the time when it isn't windy or when it's too windy? And also the quotes, says Mark, he says, are false. Well, that's Mark's opinion. Wind is the most expensive due to the subsidies to the operators. Also, solar will give us very little. Where we're going to put the panels? Well, in fact, some panels, wasn't there a planning application for Billown to have a huge solar farm, but that was turned down. The fact remains that no country can run on wind and solar alone, and they're not trying to. So nuclear power is the future, says Mark, apparently. That's nuclear is the future for us. So any thoughts on that? There's a very good chance the assisted dying legislation won't come into force during this administration, according to the politician who proposed it. Of course, the politician is Dr. Allinson, and Dr. Allinson was on The Breakfast Show this morning. 2/3 of the MHK supported the bill at its third reading in the House of Keys. It'll now ascend to Legco when the summer recess ends in October. So Dr. Allinson, one of the Ramsey MHK, says it's right the legislation isn't rushed.
There's a very good chance that a service to provide for assisted dying won't come in during this administration. We need to take the time to get on board those people who are going to provide the service, to make sure they have the right support, to make sure that those people who might be thinking of assisted dying have the right support and information. But key to this, and I can't stress this more, the fact that we're talking about death, the fact that we're talking about what people want, and also what we're talking about is openness, that open conversation when people are given a terminal diagnosis, I think is incredibly important. Whenever this bill comes through, that people feel that they have the space, the chance, the opportunity to talk about what they want and what their wishes are. I think that's really, really important for our island and our island's people.
We have heard recently as well from Ms Edge that the idea of a public referendum is something she would still very much be in support of. We saw that voted against a few weeks ago. Do you think that is something that could come back into the fore?
Obviously, the Legislative Council can come up with all sorts of different recommendations, and I very much respect the scrutiny and the attention they'll give to this bill. We actually, I think, spent an entire day talking about referendums, which we haven't held on the Isle of Man. We do have an act, but it's 1979. It's completely out of date. It needs rewriting if we are to have referendums. As I said, we have a representative democracy. It would be very odd to have a referendum put in at the end of a bill. I'd much rather referendums be started to determine the policy for a bill to come forward. But certainly I think this will be probably an election issue in 2026. With the implementation period, it's unlikely to be in action by then. And I think there will be people who, stand in 2026 who are against this and those who are for it. And I think it's absolutely right that they represent the opinions and the thoughts of the people who put them there. But also it's absolutely right that we communicate properly and people are aware that what we're trying to do is provide that choice and autonomy for a very small number of people who are facing a terminal illness, who are expected to die within 12 months, and who have a settled intention and have the right capacity to make these decisions. And that choice and autonomy given to those people, I think, is absolutely key for us moving forward as a nation.
There he was, Ramsey MHK, Dr. Allinson, who was on The Breakfast Show on Manx Radio this morning. I wonder what you think, what your thoughts are regarding this. Text, email, call, and WhatsApps. Peter's with us now. Hi, Peter.
Oh, hello, Andy. It's Peter Murgott here. Yes, I've listened to that, what you've just broadcast. I'd just like to point out one or two things which I think would be helpful to the people who are listening. I remember some time ago, a lady rang in who, unlike me, was in support of the bill, and she seemed to be under the impression that at the place of death there would always be a registered general practitioner. I do have to point out that that is a misconception. There was an attempt during the passage of the bill to ensure that whoever else is present, a registered general practitioner should be always there, but that was rejected. What's interesting about that point, and a matter of great concern, is that one of the members who was against the third reading pointed out this, which I think ought to make us think. It said, even in the Netherlands legislation requires a physician, I assume that's the same as a general medical practitioner, registered medical practitioner, to attend the patient's administration of any oral agents. In other words, to be there and to be able to obviously intervene if any complication arises. It says also, the member pointed out that in Canada, a clinician presence is currently recommended for all oral medical assistance in dying. So I think the first thing is, I think the public needs to understand that there can be complications at this point, obviously, if you're taking something which is a poison, and you do not necessarily have someone who is highly trained to be able to deal with those complications. So if anyone is under any misapprehension about that, I hope that that will correct it for them. The second thing is that was pointed out by those who are opposed to it was that when you come to the point of death, the provisions are incredibly lax, really, in one sense, that they're very informal. You don't have, you could have just one person present other than the person who's going to die. There is no witness as to how everything is done. Now, that person who is present is actually very vulnerable, because if there were to be any challenges raised, then he's only got his or her own say-so of what actually happened. And I would have thought that anyone would be very, very unwise to put themselves in that position. But there again, people have raised this during the before the third reading, and nothing has been done. The third thing that's pointed out, which I think is very important, because we've got a number of people talking about dignity in dying. Well, what I think needs to be understood is that the person could die alone, because although there has to be at least this one person present who may not be equipped to be able to deal with any complications that arise, but they don't necessarily have to be in the same room. The bill very strangely says that they have to be in close proximity, which I would have thought the adjective close emphasised you've got to be in the same room. But the bill says that they don't necessarily have to be there. So you could and it doesn't actually identify how far away they can be. So the dignity in dying, what I want to point out is that you may have some serious complications arise. You may find that there isn't someone present who is equipped to deal with them, and indeed, their complications may arise and they're not necessarily in the same room. Now, you compare that with the existing care that is given by hospice. And so there you've got a very, very stark difference between the two. And I personally am amazed that anybody could possibly vote for or support a bill that actually makes provisions such as I've described, which are very informal at the point of death, they are inadequate, and they bear no comparison to the excellent service that you would receive from hospice.
You
So
heard Dr.
they're
Allinson
fantastic.
say, Peter, that he thought this would be an election issue because this won't be resolved before the next election. Do you envisage that?
No, because I can't. Well, they say an election issue, but you see, once you've got a bill, by the time the next general election takes place in September 2026, then the likelihood is that the bill will have been passed and receive royal assent. Now, one of the problems that you have is this, that once legislation is in place, and this is one problem that we've got with a piece of legislation that is going to be challenged in the coming months about this conversion therapy. That was passed in 2019. There was no publicity given to it. Once legislation is in place, it is incredibly difficult to get it repealed. The time to deal with this was now. And again, on this referendum question, let us remember at the end of the road that there was a consultation on this, which was better than any referendum because it went into great detail, and they lost. The majority of people was against this assisted suicide bill, as I should call it. And I don't think that needs to be forgotten. There's many other points, but obviously I can't make any more now because I'm running out of time.
Okay, we appreciate that, Peter. And I know you were there yesterday inside the house.
All right.
What was the mood of the house like?
Very difficult to judge. They listened politely and very respectfully. I was extremely surprised that the number of people who voted against it was reduced from 10 to 8, because I would have thought that the arguments that were presented by the people who were against it were so overwhelming, I would have expected it to be rejected, because this is obviously a most unsatisfactory piece of legislation, whichever side of the fence that you're on this one, as I've just described. I'm just dumbfounded that they could even pass this sort of legislation. But there you are, they've done it. That's the sort of majority opinion we've got in the Isle of Man. And I might add, this is not the only problem that we've got, but I should be talking about some of the other problems, no doubt, in the future, by courtesy of yourselves.
Okay, all right, we appreciate it, Peter. Look forward to that. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, it's 19 minutes past 12. Eddie's with us now. Hi, Eddie.
Hi, you all right, Andy?
Very good, thanks. Yeah.
Good. I'd forgotten your show was with David Quirk yesterday. I had planned to bring something else up, but your show seemed to take over on the, quite an interesting subject yesterday. Yep. Well, while we're on that subject, did I ask you once if you could allow the people of Ronald to give their point of view? Because there's quite a few people who've done a lot of homework up here.
By all means, I mean, they can send the details in, pick up the phone and call any time they want.
We were hoping that you would maybe give the show over to them. We could come in and sit in your studio like some of your salesmen do.
Well, it's not a. This is a kind of public forum. People have to phone in and speak to whoever's in, so they can't come in and just talk for an hour. They have to face the public.
Well, that's what I'm suggesting, that you give the people of Ronagh exactly the same chance as you gave to, say, David Quirk yesterday, who everybody out here thinks is a salesman anyway.
Well, he's more than a salesman. He's a qualified geologist, and he does all sorts of jobs. But I take your point. If that group wants to get in touch, by all means, send me all the details, and we'll see where we go from there. Anyway, what did you call for?
My point was going to be that the Isle of Man made the national news, the television, didn't they?
It did,
recently?
yesterday.
On what subject, do you think?
Assisted dying.
No, what I'm thinking of is somebody trespassed inside the tapes at the Point of Ayre where birds nest.
Is that so?
Television.
Oh, wow. Which television station was it?
It was either the BBC News at tea time or the ITV News at tea time.
Oh,
one
okay.
of them. But it was on national news. Most of the birds have actually done their bit now anyway, and I'm not too sure why these people strayed on in the nesting area, which is taped off. But they've got a good description of the van they were in, a lime green van, I believe. But my main point is this: the Manx, the Isle of Man Birds Society, have created a big fuss about this. And yet, it really annoys a lot of us out here the way they are sitting on the fence about wind turbines. Wind turbines, we know, kill birds, bats, and everything. Heathland, forest, a lot. But they won't actually say we're against them. They are sitting on the fence. So is the Wildlife Trust. It's about time that these people, they're being paid by the taxpayers. They've got good jobs. And I cannot see how anybody who is representing either of those two societies, the Wildlife Trust or the birds, can say, oh, it's okay to put wind turbines up. It's time they answered yes or no, we're for it. Because if they say we're for the turbines, I will ask for their resignation. We want somebody in who cares for birds and who cares for wildlife.
So what did you think of when Dave Quirk yesterday said one bird per turbine per year gets killed?
Well, why? There were so many things that guy said yesterday, which we already know are not true. For instance, the perfect answer to that question is, why is it in France, just near Toulouse, the wind turbines were forced to be taken down because of bird kill, including over 1,000 birds, including a golden eagle. Right, so there's the answer to that immediately. He told a pack of lies yesterday in every single way. I forgot to ask the question, where is these countries that are going to have cheaper electricity? Because we've been asking that question for God knows how long now, and nobody can seem to give us a country where wind turbines have made electricity cheaper. Now, all the time he keeps emphasising cheaper electricity. So it's a lie. Again, a world record. I think Julian pointed out our wind is different than everybody else's wind.
Well, apparently it's world class.
It's absolutely world class. It's a world class packer. I'd refrain from the word that I want to say, but it's just nothing but spiel, a load of crap.
So why would anybody do that?
Well, let's put it this way. He says he has got no interest. Well, why is he doing this? Is he a millionaire? Does he get paid? Or he says he doesn't get paid by any of these things that he's doing it for, does he?
He gets paid. He works for this Danish offshore technology company. So he lives in Denmark. He works in Denmark, and he's part of the Manx Geological Survey and the Energy Sustainability place over here.
So indirectly, then, he's being hired by these companies, isn't he?
I don't think he's being hired. I don't think he gets paid by those two.
He's being asked for opinions on it then. And nobody works for nothing, Andy, right? So somewhere along the line, he has got an added interest. We haven't up here. We are directly talking about this because it will affect us, our health, the nature, the birds, everything. You know, just everything about it. I mean, what did he start off with? His conscience. He wants to search his conscience again because surely now that he knows everything that I know, which is bad about this company, the wind turbines, I mean, he must know that as well. And he started off by saying, "Oh, oil, I changed my mind about it." That was, surely he must be saying the same again when I've got 28 reasons why it's not good.
Do you not think he gave a compelling argument about what Denmark's doing at the moment and how they approach it?
No, I don't.
So you think Denmark's wrong?
Well, I think a lot of it was absolute rubbish what he was talking about. Both Denmark and Norway I'm in touch with, right? And in Norway, they are forgetting the damn things altogether. They're going back to hydro and oil and gas. And no matter what he says, nearly every one of these countries that he talked about yesterday, I mean, look at what he was saying about Germany. Germany is opening mines left, right, and centre.
Well, that's only because they don't get any gas from Russia anymore, because they backed Putin, and it came apart.
Yeah, well, what are they doing in return, right? When you talk, let's put this dead simple. We're talking about clean air, carbon neutral by whatever year it is. How is the world going to do that?
Well, without sorting out India and China, not by then, obviously.
Australia, America, you name it, Russia. There isn't anywhere in the world that isn't going the opposite way again. They are realising. The reason why he's trying to sell us this is because that all the places in the world that have been sold wind have realised that it just doesn't work. And I pointed out to you in America, there are states where they're just lying dormant, doing nothing, dead on the floor, because they found out it's too expensive. So they've scrapped them and gone back to the originals, things that they're... I want people to... I think it was the last Prime Minister of Britain. He wanted people to sort of experiment with everything else. He would give them money hand over fist to try and get the innovation going for water, geothermal, nuclear, you name it. But we keep getting back to this point. Why is it that our government over here are still one track all the time? They won't look at anything else. They keep going for wind, where everything else, everywhere in the country, the world, all have found out it doesn't work, and it's not cheap. It is very expensive.
Okay, so, all right. No, you've had your say. I appreciate that, Eddie. Thanks for calling us today.
Andy.
All right, good to hear from you. 29 minutes past 12. Here's a note in from Texter 560 who says, would you please invite Dave Quirk back again? He provided the most logical, common sense views on renewable energy since the debate began. That opinion from Texter 560. And people asking questions about the interconnector, where it's going to be built. It's Penwortham. That's what they're saying. That's what Orsted is saying. Penwortham by Preston through to around Groudle. It will be there. So a message also went from Neil from Douglas, who just said France has studied the fact that bats die from air pressure behind the rotors of wind turbines, says that. Thank the guest for the information, says Texter 399. And cheap electricity will never happen, says this. I've got news for you about cheap electricity, 338. Thanks also to... We have all of these mine shafts on the Isle of Man which are full of water. Couldn't we use the mine shafts and drill through them for geothermal energy? Surely that will be a lot cheaper, says Frank. I wonder how safe. I mean, are the mine shafts still open? So who's going to pay for the turbines and the storage? People will leave the Isle of Man if all our money goes into green energy while our services collapse, says G. Well, I think Dave Quirk yesterday was talking about operational and how much energy will cost when these things are operational. Paying for the things to actually be created is another matter. It's the same situation with our power station. We know how much it costs to operate Paul Rose, but it costs a lot of money to build. So whatever you're building, whether it's a gas-fired power station, or whether it's wind turbines, or whether it's hydroelectric, or any of the other answers that Dave Quirk came up with yesterday. But remember, this is public policy. This is government policy to decarbonise our electricity. Thanks also to days and days were spent debating assisted dying, says 313. So let's have an in-depth debate about climate policy, which will impact everybody. I think that ship has sailed, G. I don't know. I mean, you could stand for election in a couple of years' time. And thanks also to the fact that 653 said, regarding China, which is spending more on renewables than the EU and us combined. Well, everything China does costs a lot of money because there's a lot more of it, but we take the point. Alan says, people think the Alaman government's trying to destroy farming, which feeds us, to get land to cover in houses. And regarding the postal situation, I sent a first-class birthday card to Dublin on the 17th of June, and it's still not there. I filled in a form from the post office saying it's gone missing and got an email 2 days later saying nothing we can do about it. It's a joke, says Cliff. Yesterday, says Neil, we were told that the bats can avoid the rotors of the turbine, but it's the air pressure behind them that kills them. The expert needs to do his research before making statements. I think we should go with water turbines, says James in Castletown. We have the sea around us and rivers in the Isle of Man. Surely we talked about water turbines, didn't we? And wave power and tidal power. And Dave Quirk pointed this out yesterday. There are about half a dozen different variations. Bluntly, the technology isn't mature. Nobody's quite decided which one's going to work. A lot of good points yesterday, says Matty, putting to bed some of the conspiracy theories. Cats and vehicles are more dangerous to birds than turbines. I think I'd rather believe somebody like Mr. Quirk, says Ian, than somebody who thinks they know what they're talking about because they can operate Google. I still believe, though, that we need a more reliable power supply. Nuclear surely has got to be the way, even if we take a chance on an interconnector like Jersey. And there is. Do you remember a couple of years ago we brought up the fact that Rolls-Royce is making mini nuclear reactors? It's a thought, isn't it? Following on from what Peter said and the complications at the time of death, this is the assisted dying legislation, Dr. Allinson also said people can choose to die at a time and a place of their choosing. That surely has serious implications, says Texter 572. And from 725, in Australia, people are able to go with their loved ones to places like the beach to die with dignity. Hospice offers an amazing service, but as we know, pen relief doesn't work for everyone. I'm dumbfounded that people are still trying to take away the choice from people who need it. If people don't, or never needs to avail themselves of the service, that's their choice. That's the whole point. It's choice.
You can get the best of everything, and the price is just as nice. Oh, I'm so glad we went to Pacesetter. The perfect shower, some great tiles, all the accessories we needed. They had it all. Amazing ranges from traditional to modern, many exclusive to Pacesetter. Get your bathroom on song. Visit the Pacesetter showrooms at Harris Terrace and Spring Valley.
You can get the best of everything, where the price is twice as nice.
Nearly as good as me.
There's more than you think at Manx Glass and Glazing. As well as the supply and installation of quality windows, doors and conservatories, Manx Glass and Glazing can do a lot more with glass. If you need made-to-measure picture frame glass or a cut-to-size mirror, or how about glass shelves made to fit your space perfectly? You can also get glass cut for the tops of cabinets, units and bedside tables. For bespoke glass cutting and products, call Manx Glass and Glazing on 674 573. Manx Glass and Glazing. Quality and style since 1986.
NFU Mutual has supported the Isle of Man's agricultural shows for over 40 years. They're always great social events for the whole community and an excellent opportunity for us to meet you, our customers. So do come along and meet our friendly team at the NFU Mutual tent for a quote regarding your motor, home or business insurance. Look out for NFU Mutual at this year's agricultural show.
Hello, this is H. On today's Spotlight, we're all at sea, the wonderful exhibition currently showing at the House of Mannin in Peel. We hear more about Litfest 2024, and it's in Cluniac time again. Spotlight this evening at 5:30 and available as a podcast straight afterwards on the Manx Radio website or your favourite podcast provider. Spotlight, a focused beam of artistic intensity.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
It's 24 minutes now before 1. Regarding postal deliveries, says Tom, the standard time taken from Douglas to Glenvine appears to be 5 days. 5 days. And special delivery mail with a guaranteed delivery of next day delivery appears to be interpreted as next week. As for contacting the post office, don't waste your time. They're unlikely to even pick up the phone. Still, all in the pursuit of progress, I suppose Mr. Peters is on record as saying he doesn't or can't write letters, that is. Thank you, Tom, for that. Juan's with us now. Hi, Juan.
I can deliver it in 2 days, Andy.
You should start a postal service.
Yes. Yeah, but, I would, except for my carbon footprint. So I missed yesterday's show, unfortunately. I got stuck on a Zoom call, and of course, because there was a failed electric provider and the towers kept going down, the Zoom conference kept going in and out. So I missed it. But that's what happens when you have an electric company that can't provide for you and you have load shedding. So something to look out for, maybe. Listening to David Quirk, one thing as well, talking about the David Quirk, I've got to do a little bit of housekeeping. The other David Quirk, Quirky. Now, I mentioned the other day about security on the Orsted thing, and he shot me down. But let me say that I didn't mention anything about getting frisked on the door. I didn't mention anything about getting searched on the door. I said that they had security on the door, which was a fact. So there you go, Quirky. Just take that one on board.
In what way did they have security? What, a bouncer?
They had a that's the old termination. In the new world, they don't call them bouncers now, but they had someone there. But like I said before, Andy, their last visit here, the Morgan and Mona, they brought over 2 private security people with them. And there's no big thing in this. My point is, why do you need to bring them over? You must be getting pushback in the places that you go to bring people like that with you, because you're just dealing with the general public. So that's my only point. I'm not making a big issue about it. David Quirk yesterday, he's a geologist, I think he said, yes?
Yes. One of the things he does, yes. He's part of the Manx Geological Survey.
Yeah, and I can't get why people are so big in criticising Paul Burgess, who's had his life in climatology. You've got a guy here who's a geologist. So, on a par, they're both qualified people, and in their fields. So I don't see the venom that was towards Paul Burgess, and yet David Quirk is a geologist. Now, a very good orator. Very good orator, and very, very clear yesterday. Well, let's remember Tony Blair was a good orator until he became a war criminal. There's a few points there. He brought up pricing for Denmark.
Yeah.
I'm very selective. I think I noticed now he was very selective because on some places it's 43 euro cents. But he chose the best comparison in Denmark to run with. So that was kind of cherry-picked. You also said that, and also that he worked for the DTU, which is the Technical University of Denmark, and he quoted the Wind Atlas, which incidentally came from the place where he works, the University of Denmark. So just a little link on that one. Yeah. And the carrot that seemed to be dangled, you mentioned it, and a couple mentioned it yesterday, free electricity. Don't think that's ever going to happen. No, they're in business. These people are purely business people. We're not going to get free electricity, and I think I mentioned when I spoke to the people at Orsted, there was a possibility that we might get access from what they're not using, bearing in mind that they're just merchants. We might get access.
But what's the definition of access? I mean, that's the thing. I remember years ago with the Summerland debacle, and Trust House Fortes had it, and there was an agreement put in place that they were going to give a percentage of the earnings, and they never earned anything because it was a training school, so all the money was put through here. So I like to get a definition on what are we actually going to get back?
It would be nice to hear. At the moment, 29p is roughly what we pay. I mean, across the board, there are some people who get discounts on bits and bobs and overnight stuff. But was it a year or more ago, Laurie Hooper came in, leader of the Liberal Mannin, and said that we should be pitching for 15 to 20p per kilowatt hour to make it. He said only then will people start to become interested. The moment you're saving people money, their ears will prick up. Otherwise, people just think they're going to be paying more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't see this going down. I mean, they're cherry-picking figures here. Once you take the subsidies away from this, I mean, the only thing that's given this legs recently is the debacle in Russia. That's the only thing that's really given this a new set of legs to work with, because once you take the subsidies away from this, can it stand up by itself? And this is the problem. And I think this is the argument here of where we go on the Isle of Man and how much it's going to cost us.
What does electricity cost in Florida?
You know what, Andy? I'll just come back to you on that one. It's cheaper than here.
Well, it's just that when everybody's been talking about free electricity, I mean, I've checked. There is a table that shows you who pays what. Now, this may be about a year. No, it's about 6 months out of date. But America was 16 cents per kilowatt hour. Okay, 16 cents per kilowatt hour. Having said that, if you go to places like Venezuela, June, it's 5 cents. 5 cents per kilowatt. And down in places like Nigeria and Qatar, you're talking about 3 cents, 3 American cents per kilowatt hour in Qatar.
And if you notice on that chart as well, and I haven't got it in front of me as we speak, but you notice on that chart, the highest paying out of them are the people that are on renewables.
Ireland, Italy, Belgium, and the UK and Germany and then Denmark.
Yes, there you go. So the people who are on renewables are doing that. And I noticed recently on a thing in South Africa that there's a talk of spending millions on wind farm electricity. Whether that's going to go ahead or not, because it's so corrupt there anyway, I don't know whether they're going to find the money for that. But the chart is interesting. It is the renewables that seem to be higher. The other point I was making, that you said David Quirk lived in Denmark. So obviously he's not going to be looking at the 370-metre wind turbines on the east coast of the island, then, is he? No, he's not.
But he said, and he said he was quite honest about the fact that most people in Denmark either like them or just accept them. It's part of the landscape.
I think it's Marmite. There's definitely a Marmite, but and he did confirm the height of these as well. And I think when Julian looked into that, I believe he said that these are still in experimental stages. The actual height of these ones that they're proposing to put down our coastline, and it is. I mean, the next time Ørsted have their meetings, which I think is 2 weeks' time, Andy. I think the next one.
It is in August. Yeah.
It is, and I would say to the people, go and put the Oculus on and go and look at what these people are proposing. These people are going to come and talk all nice and sensible, and they're salesmen. Exactly what Eddie said. It is a sales pitch, and Wilf said it the other day. So we have to be very careful when you've got a salesman approaching you, because all they're interested in is their money. At the end of the day, everyone on that east coast, and I was told, and I went to look for myself, is going to have this view 5 miles out, and we won't need the fairy lights and the like festoon lights on the promenade. We'll have all them nice blinking red lights going up the coast. We won't need the festoon lights, Andy.
All right, okay. Thanks, Juan.
Take care, Andy.
Good to hear from you.
Mannin Line.
So these the next Ørsted open days, if you like, Tuesday 6th of August, Santander Work Cafe. That's the Old Market Hall on North Quay in Douglas, noon till 6, Tuesday 6th, Wednesday 7th, 2 till 7 at the Corran Hall in Peel, and Thursday the 8th at the Bradaglen Cafe in Port Erin from 2 till 7. My sister posted 2 birthday cards at the postal headquarters post box. One was delivered the next day, the other one 17 days later. How can it be if they're posted at exactly the same time? Do people that use the post office and the postal service in Ramsey realise that what was called the Ramsey sorting office is now just a delivery office? If you post a letter in Ramsey, it's driven to Douglas to be sorted, returned to Ramsey to be delivered. This is why mail's taking longer in Ramsey. I assume the same method's being used across the Isle of Man, hence mail is taking longer to reach its destination. Did you know it's our 60th anniversary? I don't know whether we've mentioned it or not. It is our 60th anniversary. We started in 1964. And today it's Vintage Kelly's Eye after Mannin Line today. Peter Kelly and the late David Callister take a look at the new water treatment plant on Greenfield Road back when it was a building site.
In beautiful Silverdale Glen, Ballasalla, find your perfect home away from home at Trail Lodge.
Once a working water mill, the 300-year-old Silverdale Core Mill now plays host to Trail Lodge, offering boutique accommodation in a truly historic setting all year round. Whether you're after a tranquil staycation, fun family weekend away, or a group base camp for more active adventures, Trail Lodge is the destination for you.
Trail Lodge, Silverdale Glen, Ballasalla. Visit traillodge.im or search Trail Lodge on Facebook.
Oh, Chester, it was so easy selling all those old valuables all in one go with Vintage Cash Cow. Join over 500,000 people turning watches, jewellery, cameras, gold, silver and much more into cash. Send your items to Vintage Cash Cow, fully insured with free postage. Accept the offer and enjoy the money, or we'll return your items for free. We can go on holiday now, Chester. Visit vintagecashcow.co.uk.
Experience a true celebration of island life where farming comes first at the 2024 Southern Agricultural Show. With 2 full days of local entertainment, livestock exhibits, local traders and more, it's sure to be a fun-filled day out for all the family. And we're right on the bus route, so you can leave the car at home. The Southern Agricultural Show, the local show, Saturday the 27th and Sunday the 28th of July at Orrisdale Farm, Ballasalla. Open from 9:30am to 6pm both days, and kids go free. Visit southernshow.org or find us on Facebook for more information. It's a show not to be missed. The Southern Agricultural Show with your nation station, Manx Radio.
Radio Caroline North broadcast from the MV Caroline in Ramsey Bay from 1964 to 1968. And across the first weekend in August, Ramsey's back in the 60s with vintage vehicles and live 60s music. And on Saturday, the second and evening of the illustrated history of Caroline North and South with historians Andy Wint and Ray Clark, when the original Caroline Bell will be displayed. Tickets for the evening are £10, available at manxradio.com, and all proceeds go to support the Ross Revenge Dry Dog Appeal charity. The Caroline North weekend is August the 2nd to 4th with Radio Caroline, Live at Home and Manx Radio. The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Good to have you along. Thanks for joining Manx Radio. I always recommend there's a website called gridwatch.co.uk, and it includes up-to-date, almost real-time updates. It's a UK website, but it's interesting to see because it matches the demand for electricity and where it's coming from. And at the moment, the latest figure was 11:30 this morning. The UK's demand was 33.11 gigawatts. And at the moment, 12% of that is being supplied by nuclear, 32% by gas, and 7% by biomass, 7% by wind, and 19% by solar, 1% by coal, and the rest comes in through interconnectors from France and the Netherlands as well, and also one through to Norway. So we don't actually know, really, how much it's going to cost us. We don't know what it's going to look like, and we don't know whether or not we're going to like it. It was interesting to hear Dave Quirk yesterday, and that's what Mannin Line's all about, putting as much information and opinion in front of you as possible so you can make up your own mind about what you think. Probably there's no place in the world that's closer to politicians than on the Isle of Man. You can pick the phone up, you can go and see them at their surgeries and find out what it is that they know that perhaps we don't know. Well, one of the people in charge of Orsted, the people who want to put this wind farm, is one of the people from Orsted is John Galloway. The company behind this wind farm has launched these public consultation days. So John Galloway is the project director, and well, this is what John Galloway had to say about the public meetings that have been going on.
The biggest impact is the visual impact. We're going to see this wind farm from the east coast. It's inside the 12-mile limit of the national waters, and this is the first time we've been able to show more on that. So we've got our virtual reality headsets that let people see the wind farm from 4 locations on the east coast, and the photography as well as part of the environmental assessment. The most important thing, I think, is people need to access either the virtual town hall or come to the events if they're going to see that. And I think, again, I would just stress that people must feed back what they think of that through the form so that we take account of it, and then when we come to refine our plans before submitting them next year, we actually take account of people's views and try as best we can to mitigate it. But I think there's no getting away from the fact it's where it is. It's the Isle of Man's first offshore wind farm.
Now, you've been very honest about it, about the visual impact, and the photographs around here make it very clear. I guess that is a significant compromise when you're in a beauty spot like this.
It is, but I think what we have to bear in mind is there is a real emphasis now on offshore wind in all of the neighbouring nations. What we are saying is let's let the island take part now in part of that revolution. Let's have some of the power, so we hope to bring the link to the Isle of Man for up to 100 megawatts of power into the grid here, and that would be a secure supply of renewable energy direct into the Manx grid, and let's export a big chunk of that power to the UK and get the revenue back to the island and all the benefits that come from what's happening.
What do you think about that? That's John Galloway from Orsted. And so next time, if you go to those particular open days, put on the headset, the Oculus headset, and see what you think of this. I mean, these things are enormous. Best part of 1,000 feet high they are. Hi to everybody from the Azamara Quest. That's the cruise ship in Douglas Bay at the moment. There's another one tomorrow. It's Viking Sky from Viking Cruises, so we wish them well. By the way, Business Isle of Man wants to hear from owners of companies that sell through digital platforms or on their own website. If you sell through your own website or a digital platform, they're offering support in the digital marketplace. The first stage of the work was to collect insights from the challenges that business owners face and with various platforms and how they want to improve their online sales experience. So if this is your experience, if you've got your own website and you're selling from it or a digital platform, they'd like to hear from you. The Digital Isle of Man, Business Isle of Man, is inviting all businesses that are currently operating, have previously operated or have attempted to operate in the digital marketplace to either locally or off the Isle of Man to take part in a survey. If you want more information, give them a call on 686-400. That's 686-400. And also, if you have a Love Isle of Man card, today is the last day. The hospitality gift cards were launched to encourage people to support the island's pubs and restaurants during COVID. Government spent more than £180,000 on the initiative, with 67,000 uploaded to the cards in the first 7 months. As of July this year, almost 226,000 has been added to the cards, with £38,000 left to spend. More than 5,400 cards have been sold. 77 merchants signed up to the scheme. The initiative was originally launched as a 5-year project in September 2021, but government confirmed in July that the scheme was scrapped. So £38,000 left to spend, and you've got today to do it. I suggest you get your skates on if you have a Love Isle of Man card. We can't carry on burning fossil fuels and destroying the planet, says Len. Sooner or later, the lights are going to go out. Then the radio will be full of people saying, why didn't we do more to find alternatives? The human race is the cancer of the planet, and we as the cancer cell should be doing our bit to save the earth, says Len. A local doctor yesterday asked the question, do we really want to be called Death Island? He also pointed out that no doctor on the Isle of Man is supporting the assisted dying bill. As he said, no medical professionals from England would ever want to come and work to the Isle of Man. His words, not mine, says Charlie. My wife was ill for 6 years, no prospect of getting better. She passed away peacefully when it was a time. That's the way it should be, says Charlie. I appreciate that, Charlie. Thanks for writing. And thank you for your attention. Back tomorrow. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones.
WINT. 60 years serving you as the nation station. This is Manx Radio.
Kelly's Eye, brought to you by Ellis Brown Architects.
Peter, what's Kelly's Eye looking at today in the semi-darkness?
Today, David, it's almost looking like the entrance to the Tenco camp, I think, that television programme. We've got in front of us these high gates and all sorts of bolts and things. There's a bit of barbed wire over there. There's a high fence running all the way around with danger, do not climb on fence. But in fact, it's a building site, and we can see straight through, and we can see a big hole with a crane in it.
A very big crane.
Because this is the site at the end of Greenfield Road where the new water treatment plant is going to cover Douglas, Onken, the east of the island. But here we are just in October 2005, but in September was the centenary, and I don't think they celebrated it, of the Baldwin Reservoir opening.
100 years ago.
100 years ago, and just think of the foresight. This wasn't government, this was Douglas Corporation, and they actually did it by direct labour. We brought in the Irish navvies, about 250 of them at one time, and they were living in huts out there on the site.
Yeah.
And of course there was the railway.
That's right, right through Baldwin Valley.
Through Baldwin, through Abbey Lands, and up to Onken.
Yes.
Because from Onken, of course, they brought clay and they brought stone from the Hilbury Quarry, which is no longer there. The forerunner of this, of course, was the Douglas Waterworks Company, and their first reservoir was in Onken, in Summerhill Glen, as it is now.
Yes.
Of course, that's now in Douglas. Then their second one was at Ballacane, which was at the top of Little Mill. Then Clips. Then Kerridoo, and then eventually they decided they needed a much, much bigger reservoir, so they went out to Baldwin.
Yes.
I think Baldwin, or out at Ingerbreck, contains, or was planned to contain, 300 million gallons of water. Hard to imagine, really.
And this is going to treat some of that water, I'm sure. The former building, of course, is not so far from here. It's just down Greenfield Road a little way, isn't it?
It is, and the thing is, from 1900 to 1934, or whenever it was, the water wasn't treated. So it came through your tap, but it was, it had just been held in a big ditch, so to speak, out in Baldwin. And then in 34 they started to add things to it and take things away and whatever and treat it.
Many of the most iconic buildings around the island have been designed by Ellis Brown Architects. Keep up with Ellis Brown today on Facebook or via ellisbrown.im.
Part of island life for 60 years. This is your Manx Radio.